Now, I don't think it's any surprise that Democrats have a slight issue knowing how to fight back. But what they just did in Maine is far and away the strongest thing I've seen the left do in a long, long time. So here's the deal. Right now, Nebraska's electoral votes are divided by congressional district. The red state has 5 electoral votes in total, but one of those votes is awarded to the winner of the very blue Omaha district. In 2020, Trump took 4 electoral votes in the state, while Biden took 1. But now, Republicans, always looking for ways to rig elections in favor of their God King, have begun calling for Nebraska to switch to a winner-takes-all system, wherein Trump would almost certainly win all 5 electoral votes. The state's governor, Republican Jim Pillen, has signaled an openness to calling a special legislative session dedicated solely to changing the state's electoral vote allocation, saying, "I am steadfast in my commitment to get winner-take-all over the finish line, thereby honoring our constitutional founding, unifying our state, and ending the 3 decades-old mistake of allocating Nebraska's electoral votes differently than all but one other state." Here's why this is so critical. This is a 2024 map where Nebraska goes fully red. Let's say Trump narrowly wins Arizona and Nevada, while Biden narrowly wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the states that form the blue wall, which are normally enough to solidify the win for Biden, for any Democrat. If Nebraska goes winner takes all, then suddenly the race becomes 269 to 269, which means it's a contingent election and it's up to the state delegations to choose a winner. Republicans control more delegations than Democrats, meaning Trump would win in the 2024 election. All of which is to say, Nebraska pulling such a stunt would have a major ramification, and it would mean that Biden would have to win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada or Arizona. Not great news for an election that is already way too close for comfort. But here's the good part. The state House Majority Leader in Maine, the other state that awards electoral votes by congressional district, and where Donald Trump took 1 of the state's 4 electoral votes, came out and said that if Nebraska's Republican governor signs legislation making the state winner take all, then Maine would have no choice but to respond by making that state winner take all too, virtually guaranteeing that Trump loses the lone electoral vote there. She issued the following statement, quote, "Voters in Maine and voters in Maine's 2nd congressional district value their independence, but they also value fairness and playing by the rules. If Nebraska's Republican governor and Republican-controlled legislature were to change their electoral system this late in the cycle in order to unfairly award Donald Trump an additional electoral vote, I think the Maine legislature would be compelled to act in order to restore fairness to our country's electoral system. It is my hope and the hope of my colleagues in Maine that the Nebraska Republican Party decides not to make this desperate and ill-fated attempt to sway the 2024 election." That is huge news. It means that any Republican effort to help Donald Trump by changing the rules in the 11th hour in an effort solely to help him would immediately be counteracted by a Democratic-controlled legislature and a Democratic governor who have signaled in no uncertain terms that they would serve as a bulwark against Republican overreach. That is 100% the kind of leadership that we need against a Republican Party that has opted to thwart democracy at every turn. And by the way, it speaks volumes that this is one of the people on the right who was fighting to make this scheme a reality.
I believe that we are currently being controlled by a small minority. And their time is coming up. And our vessel to get them out of power, our communicator, our fighter, needs our help. Trump needs your help. This movement is looking on Nebraska. The millions of patriots across the country that have now been activated on this topic are praying for you and your leaders. They're praying for this state. And I have full confidence that this beautiful, beautiful place with some of the greatest people on God's green earth are going to step up boldly and courageously and get this done.
That's right. Charlie Kirk, an internet provocateur and election denier, is now directing the Republican Party's efforts to sway the election in Trump's favor. I spoke with my Democracy Watch co-host Mark Elias about the fringe figures in the GOP growing in relevance, and here's the warning that he issued.
Yeah, so first of all, I think we have to stop distinguishing between the fringe and the mainstream. I mean, Steve Bannon is not somehow disconnected from the mainstream.
He was Donald Trump's chief strategist, the chief strategist of the guy who was not only the former Republican president, but the current Republican nominee.
Right. And the RNC has said that they are going to be working with these, what they call grassroots organizations, what you and I would call fringe vote suppression and election vigilante organizations. So I think that's number one. Number two, the term poll watcher, it really doesn't apply to what Republicans have in mind. I mean, historically, in past years, yes, you had people who would watch what was going on. They were there to observe, and that's it.
But they likely weren't armed with an AR-15 and a bulletproof vest.
Right, and they were not videotaping people. They were not following people out to the parking lots. They were not suing for the right to harass election workers, and they were not there to gum up the works. We know that the Republican plan for 2024 is to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. And the harder to vote stuff is the stuff that my team and I are litigating now in court. The easier to cheat stuff is what these folks are being trained to do. It is to show up and intimidate. It is to show up and delay vote counting. You and I have talked about this before. How many times have we heard them say they think all the ballots need to be counted on election day? And then all of the things they do, whether it's requiring hand counting or these very, very intrusive efforts to gum up the works through election challenges and voter challenges, this is their strategy. So there are lots of things they can do to create the environment, both to genuinely interfere with the elections, but also to create the rhetorical floor that then lets them say, stop counting. Stop counting. Why are these things going on?
So while we may see these figures as fringe, the simple fact is that they are now the mainstream in today's Republican Party, and their ideas and their strategies are mainstream in the Republican Party. This is a party that has no moderating forces. There are only extremists. Need more proof of that? Here is Bill Barr putting that on full display.
So just to be clear, you're voting for someone who you believe tried to subvert the peaceful transfer of power, that can't even achieve his own policies, that lied about the election even after his attorney general told him that the election wasn't stolen. And as the former chief law enforcement in this country, you're going to vote for someone who is facing 88 criminal counts.
Well, look, the 88 criminal counts, a lot of those are, and I've said...
Even if 10 of them are accurate.
The answer to the question is yes. I'm supporting the Republican ticket.
But can you say that you're voting for Donald Trump? Because you're not saying his name. You just say you're supporting the Republican ticket.
I've said as between Biden and Trump, I will vote for Trump.
Which is to say, no matter how moderate they try to present themselves as, they are not. This is a top-down, coordinated effort from every wing of the party to undermine democracy. It's happening at the RNC, it's happening in the states, and it's happening in their media. And it highlights the extent to which we need to be awake, paying attention, and wholly willing to fight back if we're going to preserve our democracy. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.